Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video I'd like to talk to you about Netflix, but perhaps not in the way in which you would expect me to talk about it. Netflix we tend to know as a video streaming platform, right, where we can watch videos in terms of movies, series, documentaries. But recently Bloomberg announced that Netflix will move into the video gaming industry, and this of course leads to a lot of questions. So what's the point? Why would Netflix move into video gaming? What's the idea behind it? Does it make sense? And how is it actually going to try to pull all of this off? So without any further ado, let's try to answer all of these questions one by one. So let's start with the reasons first. So if you look at it, yes, in terms of video streaming, perhaps in the short run, you don't see much of a reason for Netflix to do this. Netflix is the most popular video streaming platform, right? It also has the most users, most income generated from video streaming. But, if you think about it, the video streaming competition is very fierce. This industry is very congested, and not by small players, local players. No, not only those. Especially big companies, giants, have moved into this industry over the course of time. Disney does not only have one video streaming platform. No, it has three. It has Disney Plus for its franchises, right, like Marvel, like Frozen, right, and then we see Hulu, which is a Netflix, but then a smaller version of it, and then you see an ESPN Plus, which is especially there for sports content. Amazon, another giant with its Amazon Prime Video platform, of course. It also has Twitch, right? And on Twitch you can find mainly video gaming, actually, which would become one of Netflix's future competitors. Apple TV Plus, of course, right? Apple's video streaming platform. Warner Media having HBO Max, and HBO, of course, we all know from, for example, Game of Thrones, and Comcast having Peacock, which is one of the newest players, but Comcast definitely is not one of the smallest companies around. So yes, competition is healthy, competition is good, but from Netflix's point of view, this competition is getting quite tricky. And yes, in the short run, Netflix seems to be okay. But in the mid to long run, will it also be? If you look at these competition, in terms of how many funds they have and how much income they have, not per se generated from video streaming, but in general, then these are players that Netflix cannot compare itself to. So while these companies have so much funds and resources, Netflix has to grow through debt, and Netflix's debt pile, because of that, keeps on growing and growing and growing. And so in such an environment where others can grow through their own funds, through their own income generated from other stuff, in an environment where Netflix has to grow through debt, which is not very sustainable if your income cannot grow faster than that debt, then perhaps Netflix needs to do something else. Second problem of Netflix is that Netflix's income is solely dependent on video streaming. And video streaming in the traditional sense, being that the categories in which it is active is not really changing over the course of time. But if you look at the competition, if you look at Disney having its theme parks, having accessories related to its theme park figures and stories that it then sells. If you think about Amazon selling almost everything that's possible through its Amazon.com website, Whole Foods. It has, an artificial intelligence division where, Alexa comes from, cloud computing, whatever. If you think about, Comcast, which has, DreamWorks Animation Studios, which has NBC as a channel and as a, media company, and which has Sky also. And if you think about Warner Media and so on, so this stuff just continues. Its competition is very fierce. It's just incomprehensible how you could win from this competition if you solely look at funds and if you try to match funds with debt. And again, from this perspective, Netflix wants to have something else that it can actually lean on, something else that generates income, or at least something that will help its income, its business diversify beyond the traditional movies, series, documentaries it has. And again, from this perspective, perhaps it should try something else. Finally, if you look at the competition, of course, not trying to just go head-on with Netflix. It tries to do stuff differently, right? Or at least different stuff it tries to do. And then you see that there are two important areas where Netflix is not very active. One is live streaming, right? And you see competition moving into that area, and then the second one is sports. And again, in that area, you see competition moving into. To be more specific, ESPN, Peacock, and Twitch are all digital platforms that have moved into either live streaming or into sports or into both at the same time. For example, live sports. Again, if you look at this, if you see that competition is trying to diversify and differentiate, then Netflix, of course, asks itself, should Netflix not do it, right? So you don't want this different digital platform to be preferred over yourself, because the moment that happens, you have a big problem if the only income you have is your digital platform. And of course, you can make the argument that one person can have multiple video streaming subscriptions at the same time, but what if you are getting to be number 3, number 4, number 5? People don't want an endless amount of subscriptions. At some point they're going to say enough. And when you are number 2, then perhaps everybody is going to take you still. But if you are number 5 in terms of popularity, well, then you have a problem. So will you be part of the subscription bundle of people when they're going to subscribe to video streaming platforms? That's the question. And so amid all of these issues with respect to the competition, Netflix is thinking, hey, should we not do something? And at that point, of course, the move into video gaming comes forward. And still then the question is, is it a good move or not? So let's first of all talk about how they're actually going to do this. So as you know, if you look at the interface of Netflix, and you see at the top part, you see different categories, right? You can click on movies, on series, on documentaries. So you will have a new category there, most likely, that's going to say video games, right? And then so when it says video games or video gaming or whatever label they use, when you click on it, you're going to get into this different section of Netflix that's just only about video games and video gaming in general. And so then the question is, what's going to be in that interface? What's going to be in that section of Netflix? So that part is not yet 100% crystallized, but there are some important, strong rumors, and of course also some logic combined with that leads to some answers. But insiders have also given a lot of precious information that I would like to share with you. First of all, the most logical ones, at least in a very, very short run, is that Netflix is going to move all of its movies and series, documentaries related to video games to this section, because it already has some, right? If you already now go on the Netflix platform, you will see some documentaries, movie series just related to video gaming, and most likely those are going to be moved into that section. So this is the very, very short run. Then shortly after, most likely what Netflix is also going to want to do as a possible avenue is moving into live streaming, and with this become a competitor of, for example, Twitch, but also YouTube, for example, right? So it's most likely going to have live streams in this section where either they will have partnerships with these other platforms from which they're going to import basically live streams, or what's going to happen is that Netflix is going to produce new Netflix original live content for video gaming, which is very, very popular, right? If you look at the huge, massive development that Twitch has made over the course of time, is all related, of course, to the boom in video gaming. And Netflix, of course, wants a piece of the pie, and that's what these live streaming can bring to Netflix. Going even further, but this is very difficult to realize in the short run, but going even further, Netflix may want to even come up with its own gaming platform. Think of Google Stadia. Think of Apple Arcade. Of course, this is not easy to realize. It requires a lot of investment. Also, it requires a lot of time. But what Netflix most likely tries to achieve here, if it wants to go into this avenue, is that you stay longer on Netflix.com or whichever website you use. And the longer you stay there, the more attractive this platform becomes for investors, for advertisement, for content, for whatever. And that's the idea, of course, behind it. And the more people are interested, the more subscriptions, and the more side income it will generate, and the more you will be preferred by people over other competitors. And in this industry, this competition is never going to stay at the level it is. Some of the competition simply have to fail. Big companies will also not endlessly throw money at video streaming platforms, and Netflix, of course, going to try to be that video streaming platform that is going to keep on existing. And one way of trying to do that is becoming more than a video streaming platform by perhaps becoming a video gaming platform inside of Netflix.com, right? And so how you should see this is that Netflix may have small games here. It might have also more complex games, just like Google Stadia or Apple Arcade, which will take more time. But one way or another, you will then not only be watching video, and so it won't be just video streaming, it will be more. It will be you interacting actually with Netflix through a game, which should also perhaps lead to more connection, more binding to the platform, because you're not just absorbing, right? You're giving and taking as you're playing. So of course, as I've already said, for a lot of these things, of course, the time horizon is very important. I will talk about the short run, medium run, long run, and short run, there are only certain possibilities, but especially for the mid to long run, the crazier you want to go, the crazier things are able to get. So sure, these are possibilities, but then the question is, does it make sense? Is it viable, right? Is it realistic? And so if you think about that part, so should they do it? From a competition point of view, Netflix should do something. What they should do exactly that's a big question. But video games, video gaming in general is a very important trend globally. If you look at the tremendous development that esports has made, how fast it grows, then you want to have a piece of this pie, right? And if you think of the fact that esports, or generally video gaming as a new add-on, is going to also lead to a lot of traction, a lot of interest, right? And this is also a marketing value that comes with it. And in general, if you can tie people for a longer amount of time to your platform, or if you can attract new people, this of course also leads to a new source of income in terms of perhaps advertisement or new subscription income, right? So a lot of pluses from that point of view, that esports, video gaming in general is a massive industry with a lot of popularity, a lot of traction. But the problem here is that if you move into this industry, you're going to also have new competitors, right? There are going to be companies that were not your competitors before that now are going to be your competitors, right? And then we're talking about the traditional giants, but we're also talking about, for example, Twitch becoming also your competitor, because it is already into live video streaming, video gaming streaming, especially in specific, but also ESPN Plus becomes your competition, Peacock becomes your competition. So you're going to fight with some of your current competitors from multiple fronts, but you're also going to fight with new companies, new competitors like Activision, for example. You're going to compete with Valve. You're going to compete with, because these are companies that are either streaming or they're content producers, right? And if you're going to stream video games, or if you're going to produce your video games, in each of those stages you're going to have new companies that are going to see you suddenly as a new competitor and that are going to want to win from you, and with that are going to be a threat to your company's existence. And this is something that you have to really take seriously. On top of this, the bigger you want to get within video gaming, the more time you need, right? You're not around in video gaming, you don't have a lot of experience, so how are you going to pull a lot of things off? Sure, videos, series, documentaries, live streaming, these kind of things are more possible in the short run, but in the mid to long run, how are you going to pull it off? This takes time. And if you look at Google Stadia, if you look at Apple Arcade, where they already are, where the adoption already is, then are you going to be able to get people from those platforms to yours the moment that you become a video game producer, developer, and that you become a video game platform? And if there's just about streaming, how are you going to get people from Twitch to Netflix? Big question. So another point here that we have to talk about is experience. Netflix is relatively inexperienced when we talk about video games. It's not completely inexperienced, but quite inexperienced, we can say. And so, of course, Netflix realizes this, and because of that has hired Mike Verdu. And so Mike Verdu is a very smart move by Netflix, because Mike has an experience at Electronic Arts, which is one of the biggest, of course, and most important and most influential video game companies around there. It also has experience at Zynga, which is a mobile gaming platform. again, one of the most influential, one of the most successful ones, which means that Netflix may not just want to be active on the PC and consoles, but perhaps also for mobile games one way or another. And of course, Mike is also known from Oculus, and Oculus, of course, the glasses, it might lead Netflix to move into having these glasses as an new platform for also its movies, its series, its documentaries, on top of just video gaming, right? And this might open a whole new market for Netflix to be successful in, hopefully, if it is fast enough and good enough. So Mike is not the only thing that Netflix counts on, of course. I've said that Netflix is inexperienced, but not entirely, because Netflix still has, in 2019, commenced initiated a video game project with respect to Stranger Things. Stranger Things, of course, is a series that is immensely popular, and Netflix wanted to capitalize on this by having a Stranger Things video game. And with this, of course, comes experience in terms of budgeting, in terms of partnerships, in terms of generally the industry, and this is going to, of course, benefit Netflix, at least to some extent. Then there are some of its movies and series that have a gamification element into it. Think of Black Mirror's Bandersnatch, right? You get into the movie progresses. At some point, the actor is going to be able to go to the left or to the right, jump out of the window or stay. And so these decisions you can make, and with this, the movie becomes more than a movie, the series becomes more than a series, and a documentary also goes beyond being just a documentary. And so if you can put this gamification element into movies, series, documentaries, it means that you also have some experience with the gaming mind. You have already been thinking about it, and you may not just want to keep this within streaming, but also perhaps in terms of producing games, right? And so this gamification element is also one of the experiences that are going to help, that are going to benefit Netflix, at least to some extent. So some pluses that we still have to also mention and are going to help Netflix and work in its favor is that if it is going to keep on using its platform, it can economize on a lot of investment. It does not have to come with a new brand, does not have to come with a new platform. So these are big pluses, right, to Netflix. On top of this also, if it is going to, in the short run, start with movies, series, documentaries, live streaming, right, with respect to video gaming, then this is an area, at least the first three, right, the movie, series, and documentaries, it's an area in which it is already experienced. Only live streaming it's not, but it is still streaming. And so the streaming part of things, it has, in terms of capabilities, the live part, it has to acquire. But this is something can relatively easy do in the short run. And so this also gives a lot of benefits for Netflix, at least to start in this industry and to say, I'm here. And in the mid to long run, in the meanwhile, it can start working on other projects which may or may not work out, which may or may not win from the competition. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please don't forget to hit the like and the subscribe buttons. Wish you all the best in the world, and hopefully see you again soon. Take care.